0417 hours, Sierra Madre Occidental Mountains, 47 kilometers southwest of Culiacan, Sinaloa State, Mexico. Dawn had not yet broken over the pine-studded ridgelines. Mist clung to the valleys where no roads appeared on any official map. Then the silence shattered. 60 operators from Naval Special Warfare Development Group, SEAL Team 6, inserted via 4 MH-47G Chinook helicopters under total electromagnetic silence. The target compound sprawled across 8 hectares of fortified terrain, a cartel stronghold responsible for coordinating the flow of 340 kilograms of fentanyl precursor chemicals weekly into staging zones along the Arizona border. Intelligence assessments placed 90 to 110 armed combatants within the perimeter. Concrete bunkers reinforced with steel plating dotted the hillside. Thermal imaging revealed guard rotations every 12 minutes. This was not a raid. This was a siege compressed into 17 minutes of precision violence. The authorization had come 72 hours earlier following the deaths of 4 Drug Enforcement Administration personnel in Nogales. The compound's location straddled a legal precipice, technically sovereign Mexican territory, operationally a zone where state authority had ceased to exist. Diplomatic channels had been exhausted. The Mexican government received notification 14 minutes before insertion. Not consultation, notification. The message was unambiguous. Extraction of high-value target Scorpion 7, real name Héctor Raúl Mendoza-Torres, architect of the poisoning pipeline that had claimed 83,000 American lives in the preceding 18 months. The rules of engagement were absolute. Resistance would be met with overwhelming and immediate force. At 0418 hours, the first Chinook touched rotors to Earth 220 meters northeast of the primary structure. Operators deployed in 4-man assault elements, each carrying suppressed HK-416 rifles, breaching charges, and real-time biometric scanning equipment. Overhead, 2 AH-64E Apache Guardians established orbital patterns at 1,800 meters, their longbow radar systems painting every heat signature within a 3-kilometer radius. A single MQ-9 Reaper operated in Overwatch configuration at 18,000 feet, its synthetic aperture radar feed streaming directly to Joint Special Operations Command Headquarters at Fort Bragg. This was layered lethality, air dominance, ground penetration, digital omniscience. At 0419 hours, perimeter sentries detected rotor noise. Automatic weapons fire erupted from 3 guard towers. AK-47 pattern rifles, poorly aimed, panic-driven. The response was surgical. Apache gunships engaged with AGM-114R Hellfire missiles. 2 towers vaporized in sequential detonations separated by 4 seconds. The 3rd tower's crew attempted retreat. A 30mm chain gun burst. 17 rounds ended the movement. Fire discipline among the SEAL elements remained absolute. No shots wasted, no exposure prolonged. The outer wall, 3 meters of reinforced concrete topped with concertina wire, fell to shaped charges at 0421 hours. Breaching teams moved through the dust cloud before it settled. Room-clearing protocols executed with mechanical precision. Pie the corner, dominate the fatal funnel, neutralize threats in descending order of lethality. The first structure yielded 12 combatants. 11 dropped their weapons. 1 raised an RPG-7. He did not complete the motion. Suppressed double taps left no time for heroics. At 0423 hours, resistance intensified near the central compound. Cartel enforcers barricaded inside a fortified armory began sustained fire through reinforced gun ports. Bullet impacts sparked off SEAL body armor. Level-free ceramic plates absorbed 7.62mm rounds at point-blank range. The assault element did not retreat. They adapted. A 4-man team maneuvered to the structure's blind side while suppressive fire pinned defenders in place. Thermobaric breaching charges, designed to create overpressure waves lethal within enclosed spaces, detonated simultaneously on 2 walls. The interior pressure spike incapacitated 14 combatants instantly. The survivors emerged disoriented, bleeding from ruptured eardrums. Zip ties secured their wrists in under 90 seconds. The biometric hunt for Scorpion 7 accelerated at 0426 hours. Portable hide devices scanned facial geometry and iris patterns against a database of 2,400 cartel operatives. Negative matches accumulated. Lieutenants, enforcers, logistics coordinators, but not the architect. Thermal imaging detected a heat signature in a subterranean chamber beneath the main villa. Explosive ordnance disposal specialists descended first, scanning for improvised explosive devices. The tunnel extended 14 meters, terminating in a reinforced bunker stocked with 2 weeks of supplies. Scorpion 7 crouched behind a steel desk, a gold-plated .45 caliber pistol in his hand. He did not fire. The red laser dots converging on his chest made the calculus clear. At 0429 hours, Mendoza-Torres was secured. Positive biometric identification confirmed at 0430 hours. The high-value target was flex-cuffed, hooded, and prepared for exfiltration, but the operational clock had not stopped. Cartel reinforcements, estimated 40 to 60 personnel in armed pickup trucks, were converging from 3 directions. Mexican Federal Police radio intercepts indicated they would arrive within 8 minutes. The tactical equation shifted from assault to defensive extraction under contact. Apache gunships reoriented to interdict the reinforcement columns at 0431 hours. The lead convoy, 7 Toyota Hilux trucks mounting 50 caliber machine guns, advanced along a narrow canyon road. Hellfire missiles struck the front and rear vehicles simultaneously, creating an immobile kill box. The convoy's center vehicles attempted to reverse. A second missile salvo destroyed 4 more trucks. Survivors fled into the forest. They would not reach the compound. The second convoy, approaching from the west, received similar treatment. Precision strikes eliminated 9 vehicles in under 3 minutes. The third convoy, intercepted by Mexican Army aviation assets operating under hastened coordination, turned back without engagement. The cavalry would not arrive. At 0433 hours, SEAL elements completed demolition preparations. The compound's armory contained 140 assault rifles, 23 belt-fed machine guns, 61 fragmentation grenades, and 8 kilograms of military-grade C4 explosive. Intelligence personnel seized laptop computers, encrypted communications devices, and ledgers documenting distribution networks across 11 U.S. states. Thermite grenades reduced the remaining weapons stockpile to molten slag. The main structures received timed demolition charges set for detonation 6 minutes post-exfiltration. Nothing operational would remain. The withdrawal commenced at 0434 hours. Chinooks returned to the landing zones under Apache escort. Operators moved in staggered bounds, maintaining overlapping fields of fire. Sporadic gunfire erupted from the tree line, cartel stragglers attempting final resistance. Precision rifle fire from designated marksmen ended each attempt. One operator sustained a grazing wound to the shoulder, a ricochet, non-penetrating, treated with field dressings. No other friendly casualties. At 0436 hours, all personnel were aboard. Rotors lifted at 0437 hours. The formation turned northwest, climbing to 8,000 feet and accelerating to 160 knots. At 0443 hours, the demolition charges detonated. The compound erupted in a rolling fireball visible for 20 kilometers. Secondary explosions, ammunition cook-offs, continued for 11 minutes. When the smoke cleared, only scorched earth and concrete rubble remained. The flight to the U.S. border required 19 minutes. The formation crossed into Arizona airspace at 0456 hours, met by F-16C Fighting Falcon escort from Davis-Monthan Air Force Base. Mendoza-Torres was transferred to federal custody at a classified location by 0540 hours. His interrogation would yield actionable intelligence on cartel financing networks, political corruption linkages, and precursor chemical smuggling routes within 72 hours. The casualty accounting was stark and asymmetric. Cartel forces, 47 confirmed dead, 28 wounded and captured, 19 fled. U.S. forces, 0 killed, 1 minor injury. The lethality ratio reflected not merely technological superiority, but doctrinal dominance, the culmination of 2 decades refining close-quarters battle tactics in Fallujah, Helmand, and Raqqa, now applied to transnational organized crime with identical precision. The geopolitical aftershocks resonated immediately. Mexican President Claudia Morales issued a formal protest within 2 hours, condemning the operation as a violation of sovereignty. The White House response arrived within 90 minutes. A terse statement affirming the right to self-defense against organizations inflicting mass casualty terrorism on American soil. Congressional leaders from both parties issued unified support statements by midday. The message was unambiguous. Sanctuary was no longer guaranteed, regardless of international borders. Within the cartel ecosystem, the psychological impact was seismic. Scorpion 7 had been considered untouchable, his compound a fortress, his security apparatus impenetrable. That illusion dissolved in 17 minutes. Intercepted communications revealed panic among cartel leadership. 3 high-value targets attempted to negotiate surrender to Mexican authorities within 48 hours, seeking protection from what they now recognized as inevitable American reach. The deterrence effect rippled through smuggling networks. Operational tempo decreased by 37% in the week following the raid, as mid-level operatives reconsidered the risk-reward calculus of their profession. The tactical lessons were immediate and will reshape counter-narcotics doctrine for the coming decade. Precision intelligence, enabled by signal intercepts, human sources, and persistent overhead surveillance, transformed a fortified mountain stronghold into a transparent battle space. Layered fires integration allowed simultaneous engagement at multiple ranges. Hellfires at 8,000 meters, chain guns at 1,200 meters, rifles at 50 meters. The tempo of violence compressed decision-making timelines for defenders into paralysis. Conventional military resistance, even when numerically superior and geographically advantaged, proved incapable of countering special operations forces employing combined arms tactics. The operation also demonstrated a fundamental shift in U.S. policy toward cartels previously treated as law enforcement problems. This was not a DEA raid with arrest warrants. This was a military strike with lethal intent against a designated threat network. The legal framework, established through classified Office of Legal Counsel memorandums, now categorized certain cartel leadership as unlawful combatants engaged in sustained violence against U.S. interests. The implications extend far beyond one mountain compound. 15 additional high-value targets have been designated under the same authority. Their locations are known. Their communications are monitored. The precedent has been set. Regional security dynamics shifted overnight. Mexican cartels, which had operated with increasing brazenness, assassinating mayors, attacking military convoys, controlling entire municipalities, now faced an adversary willing and capable of projecting lethal force across borders. The psychological calculus changed. Fortified compounds were no longer refuges but potential tombs. This was not nation-state warfare, but it employed nation-state capabilities. The gray zone between law enforcement and military action had been decisively crossed. International legal scholars and human rights organizations condemned the raid as extrajudicial killing and sovereignty violation. The U.S. government did not engage these criticisms substantively. The position remained operational rather than rhetorical. Results over justifications. 67 kilograms of fentanyl powder, enough to produce 33 million lethal doses, was seized from the compound. That metric, administration officials argued, constituted moral and strategic justification beyond legal technicalities. Within U.S. Special Operations Command, the raid validated a decade of investment in precision strike capabilities, biometric identification systems, and real-time intelligence fusion. The operational model, swift insertion, violent action, rapid extraction, proved exportable beyond counterterrorism into counternarcotics. Training protocols will now incorporate cartel compound assault scenarios. Equipment procurement will prioritize breaching tools effective against reinforced civilian architecture. The organizational knowledge gained from 7,000 raids in Iraq and Afghanistan has found a new theater of application. The captured intelligence from the compound proved even more valuable than Mendoza-Torres himself. Seized devices contained encrypted communications with corrupted Mexican officials at municipal, state, and federal levels. Bank account information linked cartel revenues to legitimate businesses across North America and Europe. The distribution network maps identified stash houses, transportation nodes, and street-level dealers in 47 American cities. Federal prosecutors now possess evidence sufficient for 200 indictments. The intelligence windfall will fuel investigations for 18 months. Mexico's government faced a political crisis within days. Revelations from the seized materials implicated 3 state governors, 12 federal police commanders, and 1 cabinet minister in cartel payoffs. President Morales ordered immediate arrests, but the damage to institutional credibility was severe. Public opinion polls showed 68% of Mexicans supported the U.S. raid, despite the sovereignty violation, a stunning repudiation of their own government's capacity to confront organized crime. The political pressure forced a fundamental recalibration. Mexico requested a bilateral task force to coordinate future operations, effectively acknowledging what the raid had proven: unilateral capability trumps diplomatic niceties when national security is at stake. The strategic signal extended beyond Mexico. Transnational criminal organizations operating in Guatemala, Honduras, and Colombia received an unambiguous message. American patience has limits, and those limits have now been definitively established. Intelligence reporting indicated increased caution among cartel leadership, relocation of high-value targets to urban centers where U.S. strikes would incur greater political costs, and fragmentation of command structures to reduce concentration of authority. These adaptations, while tactically prudent, strategically degraded organizational cohesion and operational effectiveness. 17 minutes of violence achieved what years of diplomatic pressure, financial sanctions, and judicial proceedings could not: the physical removal of a key node in the fentanyl supply chain and the psychological shattering of cartel operational security assumptions. The compound in the Sierra Madre Occidental no longer exists. Its commander sits in a supermax detention cell. His network is dismantled. The precedent is established. The Strait is not the only contested space where American power projects without apology. The mountains, too, now fall within the engagement envelope. Sovereignty is not violated when it has already been surrendered, not to American forces, but to criminal enterprises operating with impunity. The raid did not change Mexican law. It acknowledged the reality that law had ceased to function in zones controlled by narco armies. The response was not diplomatic protest, but kinetic action. The 17 minutes in Sinaloa redefined the operational boundaries of American self-defense. The message requires no translation. Threaten American lives at industrial scale, and distance provides no protection. Borders provide no sanctuary. Fortifications provide no security. The only variable is time, and that clock is always running.